Class 10th, English book, First Flight. Chapter number 4, from the Diary of Anne Frank. Before you read, Anneliese Marie Anne Frank, 12 June 1929 to February or March 1945, was a German-born Jewish girl who wrote while in hiding with her family and 4 friends in Amsterdam during the German occupation of the Netherlands in World War II. Her family had moved to Amsterdam after the Nazis gained power in Germany, but were trapped when the Nazi occupation extended into the Netherlands. As persecutions against the Jewish population increased, the family went into hiding in July 1942 in hidden rooms in her father Otto Frank's office building. After 2 years in hiding, the group was betrayed and transported to the concentration camp system where Anne died of typhus in Bergen-Belsen within days of her sister Margot Frank. Her father, Otto, the only survivor of the group, returned to Amsterdam after the war ended to find that her diary had been saved. Convinced that it was a unique record, he took action to have it published in English under the name The Diary of a Young Girl. The diary was given to Anne Frank for her 13th birthday and chronicles the events of her life from 12 June 1942 until its final entry of 1st August 1944. It was eventually translated from its most widely read books. There have also been several films, television, and theatrical productions, and even an opera based on the diary. Described as a work of a mature and insightful mind, the diary provides an intimate examination of daily life under Nazi occupation. Anne Frank has become one of the most renowned and discussed of the Holocaust victims. Here's an activity. Do you keep a diary? Given below under A column are some terms used to describe a written record of personal experience. Can you match them with the descriptions under column B? Journal. What is journal? The correct option is a journal is a full record of a journey, a period of time, or an event written every day. Second, diary is a book with a separate space for or page for each day and in which you write down your thoughts and feelings or what has happened on that day. Third, log. It's a written record of events with times and dates, usually official. Fourth is memoirs. It's a record of a person's own life and experiences, usually a famous person. Second activity is, here are some entries from personal records. Use the definitions above to decide which of the entries might be from a diary, a journal, a log, or a memoir. First is, I woke up very late today and promptly got a scolding from Mum. I can't help it. How can I miss the FIFA World Cup matches? It's a diary. Second, 10:30 a.m. Went to the office of the director. 1 p.m. Had lunch with chairman. 5:45 p.m. Received Rahul at the airport. 9:30 p.m. Dinner at home. It's a log. Okay. Third is, the ride to OT was uneventful. We rested for a while every 50 kilometers or so. Used the time to capture the magnificent landscape with my handycam. From OT we went on to Bangalore. What a contrast! The noise and pollution of this once beautiful city really broke my heart. It's a journal. Fourth is, this is how Raj Kapoor found me, all wet and wrecked, outside RK Studios. He was then looking for just someone like this for a small role in Mera Naam Joker, and he cast me on the spot. The rest, as they say, is history. And this is a memoir. Now let's continue with this story. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Not only because I've never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing, and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and I was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience, and since I'm not planning to let anyone read this stiff-backed notebook grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Let me put it clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world. And I'm not. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I'm with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they're not liable to change. This is why I've started the diary. To enhance the image of this long-awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary the way most people would do. But I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Oral comprehension check. First, what makes writing in the diary a strange experience for Anne Frank? Second, why does Anne want to keep a diary? Third, why did Anne think that she could confide more in her diary than in people? Let's continue the story. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'd better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. My father, the most adorable father I've ever seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. My sister, Margaret, was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12 June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. My father emigrated to Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margaret and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margaret went to Holland in December, and I followed in February when I was plunked down on the table as a birthday present for Margaret. I started right away at the Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started in the first form. In the 6th form, my teacher was Miss Cooperus, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell. In the summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation, so my birthday passed with little celebration. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other, and Grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. The 4 of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present day of 28 June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. Oral comprehension check. First, why does Anne provide a brief sketch of her life? Second, what tells you that Anne loved her grandmother? Let's continue. Dearest Kitty, our entire class is quacking in its boots. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teacher decides who'll move up to the next form and who'll be kept back. Half the class is making bets. Jean and I laugh ourselves silly at these 2 boys behind us, Cian and Jax, who have staked the entire holiday savings on their bet. From morning to night, it's, "You're going to pass." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." Even G's pleading glances and my angry outbursts can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We'll make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. There were 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mr. Casing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework. An essay on the subject, a chatterbox. A chatterbox. What can you write about that? I'd worry about it later, I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. That evening, after I finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote 3 pages. Mr. Casing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a student's trait and that I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. Mr. Casing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. This time it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Casing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. However, during the 3rd lesson he had finally had enough. And Frank, as punishment for talking in class, writing an essay entitled Quack, 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 said Mystery's chatterbox. The class roared. I had to laugh too, though I'd nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. It was time to come up with something else, something original. My friend Sane, who was good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse, and I jumped up for joy. Mr. Casing was trying to play a hard joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I'd made sure the joke was on him. I finished my poem, and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings who were bitten to death by their father because they quacked too much. Luckily, Mr. Casing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to the several other classes as well. Since then, I have been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. On the contrary, Mr. Casing's always making jokes these days. Yours, Anne. Extracted from the diary of a young girl with slight adaptation. Oral comprehension check. 1. Why was Mr. Casing annoyed with Anne? What did he ask her to do? 2nd. How did Anne justify her being a chatterbox in her essay? 3rd. Do you think Mr. Casing was a strict teacher? 4th. What made Mr. Casing allow Anne to talk in class? And next, we have a poem, Amanda, by Robin Klein. Every child feels that he or she is controlled and instructed not to do one thing or another. You too may feel that your freedom is curtailed. Write down some of the things you want to do, but your parents or elders do not allow you to. To read the poem aloud, form pairs, each reading alternate stanzas. You are in for a surprise. Don't bite your nails, Amanda. Don't hunch your shoulders, Amanda. Stop the slouching and sit up straight, Amanda. There is a languid emerald sea where the sole inhabitant is me, a marmot drifting blissfully. Did you finish your homework, Amanda? Did you tidy your room, Amanda? I thought I told you to clean your shoes, Amanda. I am an orphan roaming the street, a pattern soft dust with my hushed bare feet. The silence is golden, the freedom is sweet. Don't eat that chocolate, Amanda. Remember your acne? Amanda, will you please look at me when I'm speaking to you, Amanda? I am Rapunzel. I have not a care. Life in the tower is tranquil and rare. I'll certainly never let down my bright hair. Stop that sulking at once, Amanda. You're always so moody, Amanda. Anyone would think that I nagged at you, Amanda.